Okay guys, so let me go ahead and just sum up everything about the iPod Touch. What I like, what I don't like, everything really condensed. So let's go ahead and just start with what I like. I really do like the hardware. I think it's really solid looking. I love the look. The screen is actually darker than on the iPod Touch 2nd generation. Go ahead and just pull that in. You can see here it's much darker than it kind of looks like gray there. And so it really gives it a very sleek look, a very cool look. It almost looks like there's no screen at all unless you're looking at it head on. Another thing, I do like the Facetime camera. Really impressed with the quality, actually. That was one of the most surprising things, because I've seen Facetime cameras before. Really wasn't impressed with it on the iPhone 4. And apparently, I suppose the iPod Touch is supposed to have the same camera, so maybe I just wasn't looking at, maybe some of the quality samples I saw weren't right, whatever. But very impressed with the Facetime camera on the iPod Touch 4th generation. Looks very good. Almost as good as the rear-facing camera. Speaking of the rear-facing camera, I wouldn't say I'm not impressed with it, but I do think that it's pretty decent. As far as video goes, I'm going to go ahead and just flip it over and you guys can take a look here. As far as the video goes, it's good. I wouldn't say it's not as good as maybe like a Flip or any sort of dedicated camcorder. So maybe if you're going to go on vacation or something like that, you probably ought to take a real maybe like an SLR or a real camera. But for every day, if you see something cool, so you want to take a quick picture with your friends or whatever, it's not a bad camera at all. It's just it's just not super high quality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Microphone and sound quality, pretty impressed with that. Actually, I'm quite impressed with that, just because you can see that's a tiny little microphone, but it does pick up sound very well, including if you're facing the front or the back. So no issues whatsoever with the sound quality. Or rather, the microphone quality. Now, the sound quality, as far as the speaker, I like the speaker, pretty good. Not perfect, but I think it's pretty good. And the headphone quality is actually really quite good. So I'm impressed. Whatever Apple did, to increase that, they did a good job. So Retina display, fantastic. Love it. Could not be more pleased with the Retina display. It really just looks fantastic. Text especially just pops out of the screen. But even your icons, everything. I really do recommend take a look at the Retina display for yourself. The camera really just doesn't do it justice. So, go to your Apple store, maybe go to wherever that sells iPod Touches or iPhones, and get yourself a hands-on to really understand, or maybe borrow your friends, whatever. A Retina display is fantastic. Now, as far as the speed on the iPod Touch, I am impressed to an extent. Now, if you use an iPad, I do think, I don't have one here to kind of benchmark against each other, but I do think the iPad is a little bit faster, just as far as opening and closing stuff and everything. And the iPod Touch, though, is definitely nothing to, kind of laugh at, especially compared to, previous iPods and iPhones. It's very snappy. Everything loads fairly quickly. So no real complaints there. Web pages load nicely, games run well. Everything like that. So no real complaints there. Just not really impressed compared to the iPad. So moving on, the software, it does run iOS 4.1. It does, of course, have FaceTime. FaceTime is great. Really impressed with FaceTime as far as the quality. And also, it really wasn't laggy, glitchy, anything like that. I mean, it really did feel like you were actually talking to a person when you use FaceTime. The camera application, pretty solid. It's pretty much the same as on the iPhone 4, although it does lack the HDR photos, but not a big deal. So the only thing that I do actually have to say, iOS, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm sure most of you guys have used an iPhone or an iPod Touch before, so you know about it. One thing about iOS 4.1 on the iPod Touch 4th generation, though, is that it actually was a little bit glitchy. I was actually able to crash Safari several times, as far as doing the pinching and zooming. So there are a few bugs here and there in 4.1. I'm sure the more I use it, the more I find more. But of course, that software stuff that will be easily fixed. Apple is really known for supporting their devices for several years in the future. So really that doesn't really worry me. I wouldn't really worry about not buying it because of that, because any glitches and stuff will be fixed fairly soon. So guys, that's pretty much my wrap up of the iPod Touch 4th generation. As far as all the features. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about is the price and comparisons and just a little bit about this. So you just bear with me. So as far as the price goes, in the United States, you can go ahead and buy the iPod Touch 4th generation 8 gigabytes for $230. You can go ahead and buy 32 gigabytes for $300. And you can buy 64 gigabytes for $400. Now, actually, those prices are very competitive with other things, such as maybe the Zune HD. But really, guys, the iPod Touch is in a league of its own. If you're looking for something, you know, a media player, you know, it fits a game system, it could be a camera. I mean, there are so many different niches that the iPod Touch fills, there really is just no comparison. You know, I mean, yeah, you could take a look at it compared to a PSP, but the iPod Touch is, you know, it does internet way better than the PSP, cameras and everything. You can almost compare it to maybe like a Flip Minnow or something like that, which it's not, the camera quality isn't as good, but good luck trying to get on the internet with your Flip. So guys, there's a lot of pros and cons, but on the whole, I'm very impressed with the iPod Touch as far as the price goes. And in case I have had a couple questions, unlike the third generation, all three devices are the same. So the 8GB, 32, 64, they all have the cameras. They all are identical as far as just the memory. So no worries about that. Now, as far as which one, if you're interested in getting one, I recommend the 32. So actually, the 8GB, even though it is 8GB, once you get it all set up without any apps at all, it only actually has 6.5 gigabytes of space. And trust me, guys, that gets filled up very, very fast. So between apps, even with just a little bit of music, I've only got maybe like 40 or 50 songs, and just a few apps, I'm already down to about 4 gigabytes of space. So that's a little bit worrying, and of course, you know, high definition video, the iPod Touch without anything on it, it would be filled up within a couple hours of high definition video. So 32 is the sweet spot in my opinion if you're really going to be using it. If you're just getting it kind of just to test it out or whatever, the 8 is okay, but I definitely do recommend the 32. So guys, that is pretty much it for my wrap up of the iPod Touch 4th generation. Overall, very, very impressed with it. Everything is pretty good. There are a few little problems I have, a couple little issues, but on the whole of it, guys, you just can't beat it as far as, you know, the price, the features, everything about this just is fantastic, and Apple did an amazing job. So really, I do have to hand it to them. And I am extremely pleased with iPod Touch 4th generation. So guys, if you're interested, definitely, I don't hesitate to recommend it whatsoever. It's a really solid device, and I'm definitely going to enjoy using it for quite some time. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.